Okay, so we'll get started today. And today's our last session for this cohort. And we want to start with a huge thank you to everybody for being a part of this, for learning together with us and helping us learn so much from all of you. It's been such a great experience. And like every time I'm part of one of these cohorts, it's just I go back like so overwhelmed with everything that's come, the conversations that have happened, the learning that has happened. So thank you everybody for making this happen. So a huge round of applause for us. If you want to do a clap in the chat or anything in the chat box, anything in your emoji reactions, whatever works for you, please feel free. It's been great. So welcome to the last session and for helping us reach here together. So for the first thing that as we're starting today, we do want to recognize that sometimes the work in this field can be a bit overwhelming. It can be a bit, we may not always remember to take care of ourselves. We may not always things may take a toll on us, and it may be we have to remember to take care of ourselves, of each other, and have that space. I'd love to hear from all of you. What are some self-care techniques that you've been using lately? So anything that you do that gives you joy, that helps you recharge and get ready to take on a new day of work, please put it in the chat box. I'd love to hear what you all do. And for me, like I like to just disconnect from the internet for some time. Like I'll take a day off the internet and try and just be by myself and go out for walks and try and do that to just mentally recharge. But would love to hear from all of you. What do you do for self-care? So please feel free to unmute and share or pop it in the chat box. Dancing from Sylvia. That sounds awesome. Maria sharing, I think, what silly videos with my kids. Oh, that sounds like fun. From Rita, started listening to relaxation music. Nice. Spending time with kids, no phone and internet. Your you, Sanjo. Making things, baking from Zianda. From Fozia, self-care evening walks, aerobics, taking break from work. Plan taking TikTok videos and acting. Nice. Going out with friends for soccer or coffee. So lots of very interesting ideas in here. I think I'm going to try some of these, like dancing especially. I don't think I've done that in a while. Maybe I'll try that and see. That sounds exciting. Nature walks, putting off social media, dancing and exercise. Great. Thank you so much for sharing these, and please do keep sharing more if there's anything more that comes up for you. But yeah, we'd love to have that space where we're also in community with each other and helping each other take care of ourselves. So thank you so much for sharing that, and excited to try a couple of these over the weekend. Great. So now getting into the session for today, session 6. This is looking ahead. So we want to use this session today to bring together what we've done in the last 5 weeks and how do we move forward from here. Before we get into that, for today's session, as usual, we'll be starting with a group check-in that we've just done, a bit of housekeeping coming up. There's a bit more of housekeeping today as we're wrapping up, so there's a few things to keep in mind. And then a review of last week where Lan will share the take home with us, and then Rita will take us through the meat of the session today, which is learning from what we've done in the last 5 weeks and then looking at how we put it into practice, followed by group work, and then the final take home for this week, and then just wrapping up. So that's coming up today. For housekeeping, I won't spend too much time on this. I think I've been doing this for 5 weeks, so we'll try and keep video on. Remember to step up, step back for the last session. And that just appreciating that we're all here from all these different spaces and cultures and contexts. Um, a bit more focus on this one. So please remember to sign in for session 6, requesting Rita to please share the attendance link in the chat box. We do also request that for the final assignment as well, try and submit it in the PowerPoint template, please. That helps us review it. The deadline for the take home exercise for this week is the 26th of March, which is Sunday. And we do also recognize that we're all working, lots of us are in the field doing traveling, doing lots of work. It may have been difficult to find time to look at the take homes, or maybe you missed a session, couldn't catch up with the recording. So we do want to make sure you all have a bit of extra time to catch up with anything you might have missed. So if you've missed any take homes, we're extending the deadline by another week. So by the 2nd of April, please share any pending take homes with us, and we'll make sure we have time to review them before we close. But yeah, please, I hope this time will be helpful for folks to catch up. So once we've reviewed the take homes and gone through the course, we will share certificates with those people who are eligible for certificates by the end of April. So for certificates, for you to be eligible for a certificate, you have to have attended 4 out of 6 sessions and successfully completed 4 out of 6 take homes. So in case you've gotten an email from us that you've maybe submitted a take home that needed a little bit more work, or we had a few questions, then please do review them and share those back. So as long as you've completed at least 4 out of 6 take home successfully and attended 4 out of 6 sessions, you should expect a certificate from us. But that'll be at the end of the month. So that's, I'll speak more about this as we close today. But for now, moving to the review of last week. Sanjog, just noting your message. No worries, we do understand. So please do share the take homes by the 2nd at the latest, so we have enough time to review everything and close. So now for last week's session, we had asked you all to just look at a strategy that you thought would be effective in your context, and just go into a bit more detail with that. So now I'd like to request Lan to please share a bit about your take home and what strategy you had picked and why, and maybe summarizing it to 3 to 5 minutes at most, please. So handing over to Lan now.
Thank you, Rubina, for the opportunity. And the take-home exercise, I decided to go with the economic transfer as my prevention strategy. And these are some of the reasons why I choose it, because poverty is most prevalent cause of violence in most parts of the world. And the study shows that where there are few resources in a household, there is a likelihood that that family will be in conflict. And around the world, women are significantly less likely than men to have access to productive resources such as land, finance, and information. Yes, it is translated to only 68% of women in low-income countries, that is like Kenya, where I am from, have access to a formal bank account compared to 74% of men. This is a very huge gap. Yes, it's a very huge gap. So globally, women are paid less than men, with an estimated gap wage of 23%. That means that the culture has enabled men to earn more than women. Yes, women make up only about 12.8% of agricultural land holders worldwide, leaving the majority of women lacking access to immensely important economic assets. Next slide, please. So which risk factors does this strategy address? So I grouped them according to the socio-ecological model. So in the individual level, the risk factors include the developmental history or the low levels of education. At the interpersonal level, we have low levels of women access to paid employment. So in most families, men are always the breadwinners. Women just stay at home and do the household chores. So at the community level, we have the norms and cultural beliefs and social expectations that men are the only people that should be decisive in money matters. Yes, this is a very huge risk factor, because even where women are able to earn money, in my community, some women have to give the money to the men so that they will decide what the money will be used for in the family. At the society level, we have the society income inequalities, where the most of the jobs that are offered in the society tend to pay men more, yes, more than the women. So the actors that I would engage in this strategy would be the microfinance agencies like the Meru County Microfinance Corporation. Meru is my home county, and they will teach the couples on ways of using the money that they give them. We also have the families, the local leaders to help in identifying the families that they need help. Then we have the women leaders in the self-help groups. So some of the challenges that this strategy would face would be the discriminatory society norms, because trying to change what has been done over time can be a very great challenge. These include the unequal domestic responsibilities, where the women are supposed to only stay indoors and do the household chores. We have also some parts in Meru. It is believed that men are the custodians of the family money. This means that even if the women earn some coins, she should give the money to the man to decide. So another challenge would be the lack of resources. Yes, trying to figure out how much time, or there will be a heavy backlash if the strategy only helps the few couples in a short period of time. Yes, this strategy should be sustainable and for a more prolonged period. So we have also resistance from the community elders and negative feminism and masculinity behavior. So thank you so much. Yes, over to you, Rubina.
Thank you so much, Lan. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to just invite anyone else from our cohort today. Would you have anything to add? Any questions for Lan or for us? Or any thoughts on the economic transfer strategy in your context? Maria, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Thank you so much. This was so detailed and I really appreciate it, because it makes me think about Puerto Rico, which is a territory, part of the US government. But we don't have, like after earthquakes and disasters, we don't use cash transfers, or we don't do a lot of cash transfers like they do in other parts of the world. I wanted to ask you a question. Are there mechanisms set up so that if a cash transfer or funds are supposed to be directed to the woman, but they're taken away by an abusive spouse, are there mechanisms set up to stop that money from being used? Like, have you been in situations like that? Can you explain that? I don't know if anyone on the call, Lan or anybody else on the call, like all this is to ensure that women, heads of households, have money and have money accessible through the cards or other mechanisms. But what happens when a violent partner intervenes? Like, like I just.
Sure. Thank you for that question, Maria, and very pertinent question. Lan, do you feel like sharing anything on that? Or anyone else, if you'd like to respond?
I could also see Cipriano unmuted. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was
Related to this, please, if it's related to Maria's question, we can first go to her question and then, yeah.
Mhm.
So I was thinking about the question from Maria about cash transfer in Timor-Leste, where our government, as I was saying in the previous session, that our government is now implementing supporting pregnant women and also pregnant women by transfer cash, which is to help them. But there is also a big problem when their violent partners, like husband, also someone, the neighbors taking money from them, or just after they receive money, they can be in trouble. So far we have seen that since the case, we advocate to the different actors at the community level, where we advocate for the church. Priests go to the, because we are mostly Catholic, and we advocate through the church, where priests go to their family and have give them advice and support them how perpetrator can change their behavior and respect women. And also we work with police, especially VPO, we call Vulnerable Protection Unit, where they are very based in the community, working with the community leaders and also community police members to really make sure that there is a protective situation or space for young women, especially for the pregnant women who have been abused related to the financial issues. That's what I was trying to say.
Great.
Thank you. I think there's, sorry, Rita, go ahead.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Rubina, I just wanted maybe to add on what our colleague Cipriano just shared, and also noting Sanjon's comment in the chat that women are harmed by what is meant initially to be preventing them from suffering violence. And going back to Maria's question, I will link it to what we saw last time in the last session, talking about how we need to combine strategies to be able to program holistically. And we know that, you know, the risks can be multiple. And they are multiple because, you know, they are, as we classified them, at the different layers of the socio-ecological model, and we have perpetration at the different levels of the socio-ecological model. So, Maria, to your question about how people have been managing to avoid that there is risk for women suffering from violence, one of the strategy, well, a way of doing that I have seen in many programming is that they don't stick to one strategy, and we encourage that people apply as many strategies as possible to make sure that there is a comprehensive or holistic approach to preventing violence, right? I have a kind of, very quickly I'll share an experience of how a program in Rwanda evaluated. It started from an economic empowerment program. Well, it wasn't cash transfer, but it was a women economic empowerment program where women were put into the village saving and loans associations and, you know, taught how to save money and given a little bit of startup to help them, you know, come out of the poverty, very low income context kind of. So the VSLAs that were started by CARE International in Rwanda, they had the objective, of course, of, you know, curbing the level of poverty, which was seen to be, you know, even increasing, being a risk for women of experiencing violence. So when they started that, and women started to be kind of economically independent and getting some of their own ways, you know, to take care of their children, their family, men were playing the role of standing block. And this is what people in the chat are saying. You know, they will have money dedicated to, they had projects and said, this saving will serve maybe to buy something that will benefit the family, start a small business. But men, as Lan was sharing, even in Rwanda is the case, they consider themselves as, custodians of the all economic income. So they would divert that money and do things, either not even do things, drink from that money, or do things that are not, the money was not intended to. So CARE International realized that, and actually women said we needed men on board. We need men to understand that this saving is for a purpose. And instead of bringing them on VSLAs, they started another program with Equimundo. It was I will send that to you, Maria. So they started that program that was called a journey of transformation, where they now worked with men to help them understand their role, to being supportive husbands, to understand that women economic empowerment actually is not a harm to them. It's rather for the well-being of the family. And they were unpacking really what are these, negative ways of doing that are preventing the program, the other program, for reaching its objectives. So what they did, taking men through a journey of transformation, understanding what are the causes or the risks of their perpetration, it was kind of successful, because not only men would understand where they need to change their negative masculine behaviors, but they better understood that empowering the woman, economic empowerment, is for the benefit of the whole family. So they started being more understanding, communicating more with women, which was really, helpful. And later on, maybe I'm not going to talk about this, but that program was later on improved to now include both men and women, and changed into a couple program. So what I wanted to, I don't know if I'm pointing to your question, Maria, but the advice here is not to stick to only one strategy, and is to see whatever can prevent your main objective, which is to prevent vow to those women, and work at with the other key people in the community, being at the family level, the husband, being in the community, or even being at the structural level or policy level, like Lan, we were saying. If there is a law that is preventing women from exercising fully their rights, we work at those different levels. That's why, as we think of tackling the risk factors, we don't stick to one layer of the socio-ecological model. We think broadly, and we see how we can comprehensively, create that environment where women will benefit fully from that economic transfer or whatever program we are bringing to them. I don't know if I answered your question, Maria, and everyone feel free to jump in and talk to this. Maria? Oh, yes. Sanjong shared already the journeys of transformation. That's great. Maria, did you get the references? Does that address your question? And thanks for sharing about your context. Okay, I'm not able to hear Maria, but I think her microphone, her camera is on. Hopefully it helps people. Any other thing maybe we need to discuss on that? Okay, and thank you everyone for sharing your responses in the chat with Maria and everyone. Okay, thank you, Maria. Thank you. Okay, Cipriano. Great. So and this is a great introduction to our next part, which is, the key messages we saw last time. Rubina, I just jumped in. I hope that's fine.
No, absolutely fine. Go ahead.
Great. So last time we looked at the strategies, and like I was saying, we looked at multiple strategies, and we said these are not, we didn't give an exhaustive list, and we were happy to see that you also shared a few of the strategies that you've been using. These are the key takeaways, and you already have yours, and we've seen in your take-home exercises that you got some really good messages that you took away with you. And we said that, these multiple strategies that have been, found to be effective at reducing violence, we have evidence for those that have been working to prevent IPV. So we put that disclaimer. We said we are sharing those that we knew have worked to reduce IPV, intimate partner violence. And we said that they are effective because they address multiple risk factors, like I was saying, of risk factors for violence against women. And I just said that in my example to Maria, we need to be working at the different levels of the socio-ecological model. And we unpacked it to show which strategy is more likely to work at what level of the socio-ecological model. And again, think about, that combination that we just said of the strategies. So different strategies will be more appropriate for different contexts. Of course, like, Lan shared about the context in Meru, and Maria, you also shared in your context, although you said maybe it didn't work, it's because maybe you needed in your case to be combining with other strategies and engaging different actors or key stakeholders. So it's important to understand the context deeply. So this is not only for the strategies, it's for the, whenever we think about programming, we need to be understanding the context. And therefore, the context helps you to choose the appropriate strategy to appropriate community, the people you work with. And you need to always be referring to what are the risk factors that I'm trying to address, And definitely it could have been working in one context, but make sure that you adapt your context and make sure that you are addressing the risk factors that are prevalent in your own context, okay? So there is, of course, we said we are learning, and Maria's question actually is really certifying this. We continuing to work what works, to learn about what works in which context and what doesn't work. So we continue to innovate and create new strategies for preventing intimate partner violence, and to also build evidence, because people need to know things that worked and try them. And it will be great if, we continue learning from each other what worked in their context and how we can pick it and use it in our context to address the different forms of violence that could even, be new in our context. Are there some forms of violence that came with COVID pandemic, for example? What is the strategy to address them? What are the specific risks that we were able to identify? And what are those strategies that we can apply to, to address those, okay? So more information about violence prevention strategies are on our Knowledge Hub, and we keep encouraging you to go there, read, and, find out more. And like Rubina said, share back with us. The discussion board is there, but you are already a user of the Learning Lab. Why not send us what you've discovered, and we all continue learning for the interest of the. Okay. Any question about the takeaways that we have? Great. So if you have any question, put it in the chat, any reflection, that will be great. And thank you, people, for sharing the resources. Whatever you've been using, please keep sending to the chat. All right. Now let's go to the last session of the course. We are looking ahead. Well, what does that mean to us? I want to hear from one person or see in the chat, what does it mean to us, right? What does that mean to us with looking ahead? I mean, sometimes we give headings and then we would like to see whether this, speaks to you. How are you looking ahead? What does that say to you as an individual?
Looking ahead is applying the lessons learned into, or putting them into action.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen. We're looking ahead. So we've done this, we've learned this, we've shared this, we've learned a lot from our colleagues here. What is coming next? Then what? What are we going to do with this? Okay. And some, absolutely, Samson. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Dickens here. We have learned quite a lot. It has been, yes, this is Dickens. Do I go ahead?
Yeah, sure, Dickens, go ahead.
Yes, I am saying that it has been a good experience. This course has given us a lot of reflection on what we have been doing, but also learning new knowledge. And I am personally very much impressed and contented that it was a useful time, that we have spent together. Looking ahead, I am looking at a position of continuing to learn because new discoveries keep on coming up, new approaches keep on coming up. So I will continue learning, and prevention, is one opportunity, for me to continue my learning. The knowledge I have acquired will enable me to perform better in my assignments, especially consultants' assignments, to give new perspectives, but also to be very critical and very analytical in my work. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dickens. I can't say it in a better way. And I'm seeing colleagues in the chat saying that what is expected after this learning? What am I going to pick from this theory? Because again, these are things that we are learning together. Then how am I putting that in practice? Thank you so much, Sylvia. Yes, Sanjong, accountability, practice what we preach. Well, we're learning these things and we understand they are important. So how am I going to be accountable to my own community, the work that I do, and practice things that I learned, especially the best practices that we saw from the different participants of the course. Okay, so what can we do to implement? Thank you so much, Lan. We learned a lot, but looking ahead, as Charlotte is saying, apply the different things that we saw. The strategies, knowing how to unpack clearly and understand why we need to be identifying the risk factors and how we address them. Yes, Nancy, how to use knowledge acquired to enhance our programming. Absolutely. We came here as people who already are interested by this work and people who are doing this work in a good way already. But is there any additional thing? Is there anything that we learned can help us improve the ways we are doing things? That's exactly what we mean by looking ahead. Okay, so great. So you can see this is our course, the course overview, and we have the last session. We started by the introduction and the nature of violence against women. I like this prevention essential because of there are few sessions, but actually they give you the essentials of the VAW prevention. We introduced the nature of violence. We went into the what, understanding what is actually prevention and why we need to be doing prevention. And I think we really learned a lot from there. We went into, from there now we said, let's look at the principles. What are these principles that are upholding? Then we went into understanding the causes of violence in order to find solutions. Then last week we looked at the strategies. Some of the strategies, but there are multiple strategies that you use. And thanks for sharing, okay? And now we are looking ahead and you have described it so well. So let's look very quickly at the few learning objectives of today's session. Okay, so by the end of this session, we'll say we are okay and we feel like we've attained or we've reached our objectives. If we are able to articulate the key learnings we got from the course, and you guys have started putting that in the chat. Okay, I've seen Kajuju talking about starting with ourselves. We'll go into that, into details. So we also want to be able to reflect on how to apply our learning in our everyday work. This is exactly what you were saying as we think about looking ahead. So, and understanding where to find more resources on violence against women prevention. we are offering what we have as the Prevention Collaborative, but from there, you can also have other links that take you to other sources. So feel free to explore. Feel free to get connected to each other and share. And I like this because today I'm already seeing people sharing resources in the chat. So let's keep that spirit. And we want you to be able to, keep connected to us, signing up and getting more resources and sharing with us what you are doing in your day-to-day lives. Okay, that can help us keep improving the work that we do as the Prevention Collaborative, but as this community that does VAL prevention and VAC prevention. Okay, so you will understand that we'll do that in an interactive way. There is no new concept that we're gonna see today. We're just trying to kind of, digest further what we saw and think about how we're gonna use this in our day-to-day. Now, I sent in the reminder email a note that will be reflecting back and thinking about what we remember from our last sessions. So I want us to take a few minutes, okay, and say what you can remember. What can we remember from each session of the course? It doesn't have to be with the technical words that are in the session that were used, but what is that idea? What is that point? What is that key message? What do you remember from session 1, nature of VAL, session 2, prevention, the principles, the causes, understand causes to find solution, and then last time to talk about the strategies. Rubina will be helping us to capture the notes, and then we can see, you're free to put in the chat, but also you can unmute yourself and mention which session and say, this is what I remember from this session. This is what I picked from this session. Okay. I hope I'm not putting people on spot because I sent the reminder, but again, we are flexible. Let's remind each other. What do you remember about session 1? Let's start to go session by session.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Sure, we can hear you, Zianda.
Okay, thank you. So for me, I'll just first do a quick overview. For me, we are a very small organization in South Africa and we're just starting out with GBV. So for me, this was a great course because it was a great introduction. What we've been doing is just creating awareness. And so now I think this is arming us so that we can go into detail. In terms of the first session, for me, what really jumped out was the violence that women experience throughout their lifetime, from in the womb up until the old age. And so it's sort of highlighted the importance of having different interventions and different points of intervention to sort of address this humongous issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zianda. And Rubina is capturing, please. And there are also some that are in the chat box and should be copying and pasting in. So I'm noting, Marjorie, feel free to unmute and say, Sanjong, we noted, talking about data, inaction, prevalence against admin data. Yeah, thank you so much. And feel free, people, to unmute so we can have this as an interactive session. Yeah, thank you, Kajuju. Prevention costs less. Thank you. Session 2. Yeah, focusing on prevention. Why we need to focus on prevention. That's great, Charlotte. Yeah, Marjorie, sources of data. That was session 1, I guess. Great. Any other person who wants to unmute and speak to us, please? Keep also sending in the chat and see how we summarize this.
We were also learning from the session 3 about being accountable to young women and children, to women and children.
Definitely, yes, one of the principles. Thank you so much. That was Cipriano. Was it you, Cipriano?
Yeah, it was me.
Thank you so much. Samson, Kajuju, and Nancy, feel free to unmute and speak to us. Yes, Samson learned about the approaches. Yes, the difference between response and prevention. We looked at it in a continuum way, as a continuum. Disintegrate so that you can have them done separately. Well, yeah, done separately, but also know where the line between them, you know, how you see that as a continuum, and be able to know whether your program is prevention or response. Great. Yeah. Nancy, do you want to speak to your answer from the chat? Not
Hi,
putting you
Rita.
on the phone. Yes. Hi, Nancy.
I think for me, what stood out is on the bit on the principles on inclusive and intersectionality, because I realized that most of the time, even as we program around about prevention, we are looking, we don't always look at women in their different diversities, which is very key, so that we're ensuring that everyone is brought on board during the implementation of our programs.
Absolutely. Very important point. Thank you so much, Nancy. And I'm also seeing that, Kajuju, you're talking about safety of women and girls. So we're still thinking about what are these things that we keep in the back of our mind when we start programming, you know, women, their safety, the girls' safety at the core of our programming. Thank you so much.
Hi, I wanted to make a comment.
Sure. Go ahead, please.
I think it was, I don't know whether it's session 3 or session 2, but there was a video that we watched where the head of an organization was telling us that it's not easy to differentiate where prevention ends and where you're doing response.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can be doing prevention work that can also be responding to violence against women.
That's absolutely. And I can see Fozia already responding to you and saying, what were the aha moments? And that was an organization called CREW. It's our partner organization in Kenya. And actually we have a colleague here, Lan, the one who presented today, is a close partner to that organization. So when they were sharing the aha moments, and like you say, yeah, being able to, you know, pick where to say, I didn't know we were not doing prevention. I realized we were doing response, you see? So this was really important. And we always, like we do, when we learn and when we think differently about our programming, it's because we've realized that there are things that we need to do differently. So having exposure, opportunity to know that there are new ways of doing things and triggering those aha moments, that's really key. That is important. And thank you for bringing this up. Thank you so much. Anyone else who wants to say something? And thank you, Rubina, for capturing that. I can see you capturing the notes and we'll be able to share with colleagues here. Yeah.
Rita,
Okay. I heard Cipriano first, and there was a lady after that. Can we start with you, Cipriano? And I didn't know who was next. Was it Zianda?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so let's start with Cipriano, and then we come to you, Zianda. Over to you, Cipriano.
Thanks. Sorry, it was disturbing sometime, but I was trying to just comment on the source of data and our action, and which was one of the good points in that discussion on the data is how or why the data important is to advocate for the right of women and also children. So I'm just trying to comment that the importance of data is for advocate and also for,
Absolutely. Absolutely important. Thanks, Cipriano. And this is really important. And remember, we kind of intentionally, we differentiated between the two main sources of data, like the admin versus prevalence data. And we said that sometimes admin data don't give you a full picture, and you cannot really feel like you are programming from an informed basis. So, and we picked why it is important anyway to use the data to be able to program accordingly to address the real issue that you see, and to be able also to, you know, to check or to measure whether you've reached any impact. Thank you so much, Cipriano. Zianda, over to you now.
Thank you so much, Rita. The other highlight for me was realizing how interconnected some of the root causes and risk factors at individual, relational, community, and societal level. What I mean is that, you know, we find that things like education, the financial support, the legislation of the country, all of those things, you know, add towards either protecting or increasing risk factors. And so it speaks to how we need to work, you know, in collaboration with other organizations that might be delivering on some of the other protective factors, and as well in collaboration with government in areas where government, you know, is playing a leading role. Because if the legislation is not there to protect women, then you know, it's not going to be effective what we're doing. So it sort of also informs strategy for that nonprofit organization in terms of tackling the, you know, issues beyond just the, you know, small community that you might be working with. Thank you.
Great. I'm already clapping, like, you know, I sent an emoji clapping. That's a very important point you're making, Zianda. We are actors. We are working to prevent violence. So does it mean if I wanted to do something, I need to ensure I do everything? Am I an actor to do all, you know, to work at all the different levels? Can I have that, you know, capacity? Maybe not. And of course, most of the time, that's why you're tackling something very important to me. How do we know who can be the key actors? How do we choose our allies? And you remember we had even exercises to say, what can be your allies? And also thinking really in a wider way, because, you know, prevention is so, you know, I mean, violence is so huge. I mean, the magnitude of violence, you cannot pretend as one organization, as few actors here, to be able to tackle everything in our communities. So being able to know, here is where my efforts or my engagement as an organization, here is where it can stop, but where is this other actor in the community where I am? Where is this other key stakeholder who can combine efforts with me in order to do that violence in its entirety, or in a holistic way, and help me or help us, you know, reach the impact that we want? So as program people, it's important to be also able to recognize our limitation, and in a strategic way, identify those people who can be our allies in order to get to our objective. Very good point you raised, Zianda. So yeah, interesting discussions, and I keep seeing responses in the chat. Very good. And I can see Rubina is already running out of space. This is amazing to see how we've learned. We've learned a lot together. And I want to say that this is not only what we shared as the Prevention Collaborative facilitators. We had, you know, opportunities to hear from you, and we learned a lot. That's why we are capturing this, so that people who are missing this session, people will come for next cohorts, will be able to see what we did together. And I'm so glad to see that on each session, look at these slides. I mean, Rubina, you can scroll into the slides. See, each session had a lot to give to us, from you, from us. We learned a lot. And we are just having this session as a brief reminder of what we saw together so we can know what IP can look ahead with, okay? I'm glad to see that there's a lot of learning that happened in these sessions. So, any other point, or can we move ahead and get time to discuss further? If you remember anything, please, again, feel free to put in the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much. I'm not gonna take time to read through this. I think we talked about it as we were going. We summarized everything. So here is, we thought maybe as we're going, preparing for this session, Rubina and I, we said, it's always good to keep reminding ourselves what were these key messages that we had, all right? And you said it so well. Like in session 1, we said that, when there is violence, women's rights are really undermined. And they can suffer, harms, severe physical, emotional, economic consequences for them and their children. These are our key takeaways, and we kept giving them. It's a quick reminder. After each session, we shared these, okay? And we highlighted in session 1 that they can experience different forms of violence across the lifetime. And I can't remember well who said that. And we went into the, even those women with different levels of vulnerability because of their, the risk or the nature of the violence they suffer in their context because of a specific conditions. We went through that and we talked about data, and you guys stressed, emphasized and focused on this as you were sharing. On session 2, we talked about, prevention and response. Where that continuum took us. Yes, someone want to say something? Okay, we talked about, addressing the factors that can increase. I remember we said that there could be a potential, there could be a risk, but there is a potential violence until maybe there is a trigger. There is, and we said that as we have risk factors, we also have protective factors. So it's important to go back and look at that and say, yes, there are risk factors, but each risk does not lead into violence, especially when there are some protective factors, okay? So we also talked about that, someone said it so well, we need to do prevention because it helps us to do the work at a cheaper way. It helps, we cannot address violence and respond to each case of violence. We rather prevent to be able to, to face the magnitude of violence that we see. After looking at what we see, what the data has told us, what was the magnitude of violence, we said doing prevention was a good way of, making sure that we are benefiting a bigger number of women and their children. All right. So we said we don't do that without having some core principles, and we went into those principles. And the 5 principles, the few principles that we gave here at the Prevention Collaborative, being accountable to women and girls, the fact that we need to be basing every work that we do in a gender power analysis, and also being inclusive. Someone mentioned it, making sure that you're not leaving anyone behind, making sure that you are keeping the safety of those girls and women in the program and in the community at the heart of what you're doing, and also thinking about us as actors, as key people, as program people, as institutions, as individuals, and thinking about ourselves. How do we come into this work like? What is our core values, principles? When we recruit, are we recruiting for knowledge only or skills, or are we thinking about the values? If we don't have the good balance, how do we work to strengthen one or the other to make sure that these staff are really doing what they have to do in a good way? So we also looked at the causes, unpacking really what are the causes to understand unless you understand the cause, I think you agree with me, will not address them. So looking at these risk and protective factors and situational trigger was really important for us in session 4. All right. And also placing them on the socio-ecological model was important for us to be able to know, where do you choose to place your intervention? What are those, what is your, the key people you are targeting at the socio-ecological model, right? And we know that like we said, risk factors can be many, and they can, and we're not saying that every time that we have various risk factors, we'll have a specific, like we will lead into a specific type of violence, but depending on that trigger, that trigger of violence, we can get that specific type of violence. Okay, so we said that violence as an outcome is not, how can I call it? It's probabilistic. It's not necessarily, when there is a risk, it's not necessarily an outcome. There's a probability, and we have seen that there are some triggers. And last session, I think we remember it so well. We looked at those strategies. So this was, we prefer to pick these key takeaways and put it in the slides so people can look at it in one place and know these are the things that we covered in the 5 sessions. All right, any reflection, any question before we move on? All right. I am not seeing any, but I'm seeing good comments in the chat. Zainab, we looked at the different strategies that can be used. Okay, that was okay. It's clear. Thank you so much, Sylvia. I want us now to continue, looking into our learning. And I would suggest that now we take a few minutes, a very few minutes, to write down as individuals, take a few minutes, write at least in a notebook, or it can be on your laptop or your phone, write down your top 5 key learning or takeaways from the course. I know we heard from different people, but we're doing this on purpose. What are your 5 key learnings? Because we'd be sending you with a take-home exercise that will require you use those. So take 5 minutes to write down your 5 key learnings. Okay. I'm gonna pause a bit and give you 5 minutes. Okay. Are you done? Please by a show of hand and show me that you're done. We can then proceed. All right. So after our joint. Okay, so you're done, Cipriano. I can see some hands. I guess we are done with noting down our key learnings. And with this, we want you to keep that aside, and then we'll be talking about that later. For now, we want to go into some group reflections. We want to maximize the learning from each other. Oh, yes, if there is any question, thank you, Rubina. If there is any question, folks, please send the question. You can unmute and speak to your question, or you can put in the chat and we'll address that before we go into our breakout group work. All right.
Rita, I have one question to ask.
Sure, go ahead, Cipriano.
Yeah, it was interesting for me to learn the using of socio-ecological model in identifying risk factors and protective factors at different levels or layers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, is there any other tool we can use to identify risk factors and protective factors at different levels?
I'd be curious to know from colleagues. I think I'm so much addicted to using the social ecological model. I may not use the whole of it, but what we know of, there are some mapping, like assessment, like when you are doing mapping in communities and you're mapping, for example, existence of harmful social norms. There are some of the tools that I used before knowing the social ecological model were not really doing it in a comprehensive way. What is interesting with this social ecological model is that it helps you to really understand where these risk and protective factors are located. Are these at individual levels? If you know that, then you know how to program and what community to engage in your intervention or your programming, and what specific activities are they targeting these specific risk. So I don't really have like a fully framed answer to give to you. I'm sorry, and I'd be open to other people sharing. What are these other tools that you've been using? So we've been using a lot of mapping earlier, but with a specific target. What do we want to see? And I don't really have any other tool that I know by evidence has proven to be effective. Any person here who's used something and can share? Anyone has used any other tool? People have done some quick assessment. The others, like some formative research, kind of have been helping people to identify what are the common issues in a given community. But anyone has used another tool other than the socio-ecological model to map the risk and is able to share here? Okay, I'm not seeing any response. So Cipriano, I'm sorry that we don't have other tools that we are suggesting to you. Yeah, there is a body mapping. So we talked about mapping, like I said, mapping, formative kind of research to know what is prevalent in a specific area as an issue, as a norm or something. Any other person? Yes, Sanjong, thanks for saying that. They use the body mapping with young boys. Yeah. Any other person? Okay. So Cipriano, this is what we have now, but I'll ask around my colleagues, and if there are any other known tools, I'll be able to share. We will be able to share with you. Yeah, Zianda, any other tool that you've been using?
It's not regarding the tools. I've just got a question.
Oh, okay. So just checking. Hold on a second. I'm checking with Cipriano. Cipriano, yes, thank you. So all good. And also Nancy is talking about exploring norms. Yeah, like the formative research and the quick assessment have been able to to pick which are the prevalent harmful or social norms that we need to address as we do the violence prevention. Okay, so Cipriano will get back to you if we have any other thing, but so far at least we have a tool that works. Okay, so Zianda, over to you.
Thank you so much. The question that I had is regarding data in terms of what type of data is best to capture as a nonprofit organization, apart from the M&E tools that we have to monitor, the program that we're implementing, but so that you can sort of track prevalence within your community. What type of data can we sort of focus on? Yeah. When we're collecting.
Thank you, Zianda. So what we've been saying here, like in the first session, we've said that we have different sources of data, but to be sure that we are really departing from a reliable source of data, we've been asking people to try and get prevalence data, and most of those, like I know from different countries, we have like the DHS, Demographic Health Service, that give like data on the different, sectors that we need really to, and that mostly they unpack it in a good way. And we can trust that because we know it's done in a very well-informed and professional, research-informed way, rather than relying on some of the admin data, which sometimes don't really give us the exact or the reliable data we need to use. And we know that some organizations like the World Health Organization and others have been releasing data that they do. So we also presented some multi-country data from the World Health Organization, but we have different sources of data. So what we suggested here is to ensure that we really focus on the data that we are sure are collected in a way that give us the maximum, the closeness to the reality. That does not kind of give us false information. All right. So depending on the context where you are, making sure that you pick the data that is existing, but the data that is collected in a research ethical and research informed and good way to give you the accuracy, like more or less accurate reality. So we were discouraging people from just relying on the admin data. We know it's not always possible. Most of the time we pick the data that is handy, and we know the DHA sometimes it doesn't come every year. So in between, if you want to use that data, you need to put a caveat to that, knowing that it does not give me the full reality, the full picture, and make sure that, you know, you use the data that gives you what you need. So I am not, I mean, yes, I get your question, but I also know that before you start programming, sometimes you do your own data collection. That's where we talk about, you know, the baseline and everything. So that we're not preventing you from doing, but when doing that, but where we were talking about the data and prevalence data, we also were bearing in mind that even the baseline and the middle and everything, that the baseline especially, you do that thinking, bearing in mind what is already the contextual data that you have, and that we suggested you pull it from the known sources of good evidence, like the DHS and other the other types of data that I gave you, rather than relying on the admin data that we know most of the time don't give us the picture that we're looking for. Okay. Does that answer your question, Zianda?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Okay, and please, I invite you to go back to session 1. That's where we really unpacked how the data is important, why we need to use the data, and which types of data we are suggesting people people use. Yes, thank you so much. Bello is putting in the data. And again, Zianda, for just us here to agree that we do not have to say that we have to use the same data across geographies. So there is data, but that's why we encourage people to look at the country-specific data, because it gives the reality of the context. So the narrowest you can go, unpacking and knowing what the data says for your context, your community, the better programming you can make. Does it help, Zianda?
Yes, it helps. Thank you so much, Rita.
Thank you so much. All right. So any other question? Yeah, thank you so much, Bello. And I was saying, you know, people need to look to make sure that they use to the maximum level the data that is really speaking to their context. Because as much as we know violence is a global issue, there is also need to be able to bring it to our own context and addressing the specific risk of violence. All right. So let's now go to deepening our learning and discussing further. This is your last breakout group work. So I suggest you really make good use of the opportunity you have to talk to your colleagues and learn from them. So what we want you to do on the next slide, please, Rubina. So in your group, talk to other course participants, your colleagues, about how you can apply your learning from this course to your work. Okay, here are a few suggestions of how you can do that. We need you to consider, you may consider what you will do differently in your own job and share with your colleagues how you can you and your organization or partners, how can you strengthen the prevention programs that you're already doing, if you're doing already one? What specific actions you can take to make this happen? We've been talking about, you know, identifying actors and stuff. So talk to your colleagues and, you know, pick as many ideas as possible from your colleagues. And of course, how can course participants support one another to apply their learning? How can you support one another to support, you know, to apply the learning that you acquired from each other here, from all of us, to apply that to your work? This is a way of, you know, leading into how can we stay connected? How can we continue interacting and learning from each other? Okay, those are the few questions we have as we are looking ahead. And here is, we'll be sharing the group work. Well, let me pick. I'll be sharing the group works link, and we have a table. Please capture notes. For the sake of those who are not here, they can learn from what we did in the group when they were not here. I guess this is clear, but tell me if you have any question before we send you to the groups to have this discussion and maximize and create already a sense of how you keep connected. Clear? By show of hand, I think it's okay. Right? Yeah. Okay, Samson, we note that you're not able to stay with us. Thank you, Sylvia. So now we'll be sending you to the groups, and we really want you to, maximize this learning opportunity and hear from each other. You may pick an idea from your colleague that may be useful. So feel free to use the 15
last breakout group of the cohort. Hope you all had a nice time. We'll quickly get started with group 1. Would you like to share with us what you all discussed and how you will be taking your learnings forward? Anyone from group 1, if you would like to share, please.
Just quickly, Rubina, was I in the group 2 or 1?
I think you were group 2, Cipriano.
Hello, I was in group 1.
Sorry, I'm not sure who's speaking. Who's in group 1?
This is Livia.
Okay, Sylvia, go ahead, please.
Kindly confirm if you're able to hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
So we had an interesting discussion as group 1. And on the aspect of what we'll do differently in our own jobs, we agreed that we'll use the socio-ecological model, looking at all the levels from individual to societal. Also apply the key principles of prevention as we learned them. We enhance community mobilization because we noticed it's an important tool if we are talking about preventing violence against women and girls. We'll also be more objective, more analytical, and more critical in our work. How can your organizational partners strengthen their prevention programs? We discussed that we'll be more objective and analytical, like as organizations. We'll also implement multiple prevention strategies as opposed to implementing one strategy. We also noticed that since men are critical actors in the prevention of violence against women, we also engage them in our prevention programs. And we'll strengthen our collaboration efforts and build more synergies with other VOW actors. Regarding the specific actions to make this happen, we know we cannot do much without government, so we involve governments and other partners throughout the project cycle, from design to planning to implementation and to evaluation of the projects. We're actively engaging men. We had somebody sharing with us an experience from the Real Fathers approach. It's a male engaged approach. He also requested us to go to the internet and read more about it, that it's a good model. It has actually brought a lot of results where he has implemented it. Then we also agreed that we engage women more, the real women who are affected by this violence. So we engage them more throughout the project cycle. So the last one, as course participants, how we shall be supporting one another. We agreed that we need a common forum where we'll be sharing our best practices, asking each other questions, sharing new ideas and learning from each other. So form our WhatsApp group and also a group email where we'll be keeping in touch. Thank you very much. This is from group 1.
Thank you so much, Sylvia, and really nice to see what you all have put together for Group 1. I'm excited to see how things shape up. So thank you for sharing. For Group 2, Cipriano, I'm not sure I understood your comment. So would you like to share your screen, or if you want to just verbally share with us what you all discussed, that's also fine. Cipriano or anyone from Group 2?
It's already there. I have filled that form you shared in the link you shared in the chat box. Maybe you just
Okay.
refresh it.
Yes, I'll just do that. Got it. Okay, great. Go ahead then, Cipriano. Please share what you all discussed.
Yeah, thank you. So I was a little bit late writing the name, which is not complete yet, not completed yet. Sanjog from Nepal. There were 4 of us in the group too. Sanjog from Nepal, Zianda from Kenya, and Charlotte from I forgot Charlotte, and also myself from Timor-Leste. But we discussed around the 4 different questions given. So first one, what we discussed was that how will you do differently in your own job? So we, in our team, we say to engage more actors, which is to put more efforts and energy, and also be more strong in responding and preventing the violence against women. This is good because the more effort or the more strength we put together, the more strength we are in supporting women and children itself. And also, we will also write down the values and the principles with the colleagues in the organization and share it to encourage one another and be aware about violence against women and children. This is also sometimes because everyone is busy with their task and their work, and sometimes good to sit together or seek our friend and write down the values and principles in terms of how we can respond, how we perform the work effectively in terms of preventing women and children. But if something not completed, then my team will explain as well. For the question 2, how can your organization or partner strengthen their prevention program? So we will incorporate the principles in all the programs implemented, which is to ensure that there is a safe space for women and children, and there is adequate resources, and also everyone is aware to support women. Share tasks and check who is doing what. This is also a good way to strengthen the prevention programs to really check one another. What specific actions can you take to make this happen? We speaking more on prevention of violence against women and children. We will also be working with children to support better, which is good. This is also something that good. Our presence amongst the children is something important. Otherwise, children just being alone there. We only being busy with the advocacy with the people at the organization level, but sometimes we also consider being present in the community, especially amongst the children and women, is important as well. How can course participants support one another to apply your learning to your work? Our friend, especially 3 of them, suggested to use forum, which is available on the Prevention Collaborative website. so which is good to start. There is a chat box or forum, so we use that platform to continue connecting one another, and also while accessing resources from there. We will also share online platform for learning purpose. If any opportunity for training or learning raised in the future, and we keep in touch one another and to really engage in that opportunity. That's all from me, but I still confirm with my team. If they have any ideas or feedback, they can continue to explain. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cipriano and Group 2. I think just mentioning a question from Rita in the chat. So when you're saying you'd be working with children, do you mean working, doing programming to prevent violence against children?
Yeah, if we this idea was coming up because of 2 points that we saying that one is that directly we supporting children and also preventing them from the violence itself, and another one is that from the previous session we learned from the prevention collaborative. We said children also, if any violence against women in the community, in the family, if children are there, they will be perpetrator in the future, more likely. That's why if we also working with children and avoid them or supporting them to be away from that situation, that means that we positively develop or teach children about positive behavior supporting women. That's why we also need to work with children. I'm not sure if if my reply or my response is.
Thank you so much, Cipriano. And I would also, if that's something that you're all exploring, we have a course, a self-paced course on Learning Lab called Working at the Intersections of Violence Against Women and Violence Against Children. So I would strongly encourage you to check that out. We'll share those links with you in an email as well. But that might help some of these conversations together as you look forward. So thank you to Group 2 for sharing, and now welcoming someone from Group 3, if you would like to share.
May I request Gethel to share on behalf of the Group 3? Gethel, are you there?
Hi.
Hi, go ahead, Gethel.
Hi, it's Gethel here. So the first question is, what will you do differently in your own job? So the response that we have is, it is quite difficult for us to do something beyond our assigned responsibilities, as well as being dropped down. The first thing starts at your home, from first level, and motivate your co-workers and follow the footsteps so that you can keep continuing the process. Two is, how can your organization or partners strengthen the program? And our response is, a bit of time. You know, steps that you need to follow. All of this, we all need to have a clear understanding of what we are working on.
Can I help a little bit? Because one of the points that caught, I think, escape, because in what will we do differently in our own job? There was another point as well. I think who is taking care of that presentation? I don't know. I mean, could you please go a little bit low? I mean, to the bottom.
Yeah. Sure. Give me a second. This one, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, right. So with these learnings, I'm so sorry for the interruption, Gethel, just because it was a point from the lecture. So with these learnings, we will use the data to inform and prepare the implementation of our programs in various communities we are working in. Yeah, Getal, you can keep continuing. I'm just fine.
Okay, as I was saying, having a clear understanding of the measures that we need to follow, also having for everyone to have a better understanding of what we will be working on from now on. Specific actions that we need to take to make it happen. Discussions will help one-on-one consultations and providing psychosocial support services will be like great addition to be able to identify the set of models for the community. What model works for a specific community? And you cannot use one of them. You can choose one that is best fit for the community that you're in. That one you get to see the specific things that you can get. Last one is for us, the co-participants. How do we support now? Our response was interaction, listening to each other, continued interaction after the taking the gun. That can be done through WhatsApp, social media platforms who are comfortable.
Great. Thank you so much, Gatel, Natasha, in group 3.
I think we have one more. I'm sorry, yeah, Rubina.
Go ahead, Natasha.
We have one more part below. The additional part, yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is about the additional comments or the reflections. Like, we have to take action as long as we go, apart from waiting for others to respond, because this is like one action at a time, and also like move and go for action. I mean, that is the best thing we can do, because sometimes we do not respond because we are waiting for others to respond first. But if this is in favor of you, if you think that is appropriate for you and for your organization and personally, you can do it, you can take that action. But without any risk assessment, you must not do it. You need to do the risk assessment, and you need to respond appropriately and in a proper manner. Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks to my group members who were there. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Very important point. Thank you so much, Natasha, in group 3. I think just addressing a couple of things you mentioned. So we do recognize that, yeah, it's not always possible to take a lot of things forward, and if you're in an organizational structure or with funding constraints or other constraints, but we do encourage you to take those small steps, as you said. So whatever is possible, even if it's a minor shift of, looking at how do you look at prevention versus response on a continuum, or bringing the socio-ecological model in your spaces. So things like that, whatever small steps are also possible. We do recognize that it's not always going to be, you can make a new program from scratch, taking these things in. So that's a hard task, but we do encourage you to take what you can and apply in whatever way possible. I think also addressing what a couple of groups have said and what Maria has mentioned in the chat, we do encourage you all to use the discussion forum to connect with each other. I can start a new post and share a link with everybody to stay connected. So whether it's through LinkedIn, whether it's on the forum itself, it will be open to you for the foreseeable future. So you can keep using that space to stay connected. In addition to that, I mean, as long as whatever other courses we have, other opportunities we have to bring the cohort together, we will keep sharing those with you as well. So now I just want to invite quickly group 4, if you could share what you had discussed in your group, and then we'll do a bit of closing with the take home for this week. So anyone from group 4?
Yes, Nancy here. I'll be representing on behalf of the group. On the first question on what we will do differently. Oops. Okay, the first thing is to engage different approaches in our programming. We've learned quite a lot, and hence there is a need to ensure that we're intentional to ensure that the approaches that we are using are evidence-based. Also, there is engaging different groups of people. There's the leadership, the program participants, so that they be able to become part and parcel of the program. Partnership with many other organizations, so that they're able to create synergy and also integration of GBV prevention principles. In terms of organization, how can an organization or partners strengthen their prevention programs? The first one is involving public participation, also ensuring that there is participatory planning right from the start, from the inception of the program to the end. Also being able to understand the different root causes and which will help to inform how to plan accordingly, and identifying the risk factors for gender-based violence. The specific actions that we will take so that this happens is, the first thing is to orient our staff on GBV guiding principles, because as we've learned earlier is majority of us didn't know what these principles entail, and probably we were doing it, but we didn't know whether it was the right thing we were doing. So it will be key to cascade the knowledge to other staff, and also conduct a social norms exploration, so that we are sure that the particular norm that we are targeting that could be perpetuating violence against women is the right one, and we're using the right strategy to address that particular norm. How we can support each other in order to apply our learning in our work. The first thing is we'll ensure that we are sharing experiences on a regular basis. And I'm glad the previous speakers have talked of avenues like through email or subgroup, which will be very key, so that we can disseminate stories, best practices, what is working, so that you can also adapt our programs based on our different contexts, and also sharing and reading materials that can be used by the partners that are implementing similar programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Nancy and group for really appreciate what you all have put together. Just a note on social norms, we do have another course that's currently under development. We will have a course which goes deep into social norms releasing in the summer this year, so maybe around July. We'll keep everybody posted if that's of interest, and you can always sign up for a digest to keep up to date with what we're offering. But we'll keep sharing any resources related to this and the details for the course as well. So great. Thank you so much to everybody, all the groups, for putting all of this together. Really appreciate that. I know we're a bit over time, but to quickly go through the take-home, the final take-home for the course, and some little bit of housekeeping for us as we close the cohort. Just give me 1 second as I share my screen. Okay. So Rita has also just put the link in the chat box, and for the take-home exercise for this week, we want to encourage you all to take this action planning forward. So we've done it in groups. Earlier, you looked individually at your top 5 key learnings from the course. So based on that and based on what you've discussed, please identify 3 to 5 concrete actions that you will be taking within your organizations or with your partners, or in developing new prevention programming. So we will share those links with everybody, so don't worry about that. But so for the take home, yeah, so just looking at these few things. So these are, you'll get a space in the template to share your top 5 learnings from the course. And then looking at what actions would you like to take in your context, what would work for you, whether in your own organization or whether in partner organizations or developing programs. So what will you do to implement that? And give it a time frame. We've always seen that it helps to have measurable and time-bound goals. So if you want to do something in 1 month, 6 months, what's a realistic time for that? So do keep that in mind. But yeah, so this is the take home for this week. Just look at what you'd like to do and how you'd like to take your learnings forward individually. Any questions on the take home exercise? Okay. If there's anything, you can always email us as well. But now just to wrap up our course and some other small things, please send the take home for this week by this Sunday, which is the 26th. And like I shared earlier in the session today, if you've missed any take homes, please do share all of those by the 2nd of April. We'll still consider all of them and review them and share any feedback with you just in case they don't meet expectations. If we haven't shared feedback with you and you've sent a take home, please understand that we can't reply to everybody, but that means that your take home looks good. There's nothing like we've learned from it. There's nothing for you to review in that. But if you have anything that you've missed, please do share it by the 2nd at the latest, so we have enough time to review everything and come back to you on certification. Again, if you have any questions, you can email Rita. Benita unfortunately could not be with us today. But she does send her love to everybody. She's currently doing an in-person training in Nepal, so that's where she is. But sending her love and energies to everybody here. But you can email Rita, you can email Benita or myself, and we'll get back to you if there's any questions. Again, for certificates, if you've attended 4 out of 6 sessions, completed 4 out of 6 take homes, please expect a certificate from us at the end of the month, at the end of April. And do submit your take homes again by the 2nd at the latest. So for further courses, we do have quite a few opportunities that are available right now. There are 3 self-paced courses that you can do on Learning Lab, which are open at the moment. One is called Starting with Ourselves, Reflecting on Power, Gender and Violence. The second is the working at the intersections of war and pact, which what I was talking about earlier. And there's a Prevention Essentials refresher, which goes over a lot of what we discussed in this course, but it's self-paced. So if you ever want to review what we did here, go back to it and refresh what you've learned. That's always open for you to do that. We will also have a facilitated course coming up in the next few weeks, which is how to succeed at war prevention, understanding the key elements of successful programming. So once those applications open up, we will let you all know as well. But meanwhile, the self-paced courses, these 3 are open, and you can go ahead and take those up if you have the time and interest. We do also encourage you to check out our Knowledge Hub again. There's lots of resources there, lots of interesting program summaries. We talk about prevention strategies, examples, guides, other resources. So please check that out and see if you find anything relevant for yourself. We will also request you to sign up for our digest. So that's a great way to stay up to date with the latest research, with our webinars, briefs, any courses that are upcoming and other opportunities. So please sign up for that. We'll again share these links on in an email as well, plus our social media handles. The last thing, so we really want to understand from you all how this course was for you. There is a post-course questionnaire that we've developed. It will take you about 15 minutes to complete. As we close today, I would really urge everybody to please take those 15 minutes now and share your feedback with us. What worked for you, what didn't work for you, any suggestions that you have for us. We really welcome suggestions, and anything that you think we could do to improve and make these courses more relevant for practitioners like yourselves. So please do take those 10-15 minutes to let us know your feedback. And yeah, stay connected. These are social media handles, signups, but we will also encourage you to keep using the discussion forum to stay in touch with us. Everybody who's in this course, in this cohort, you have access to that forum. So it's the easiest way to connect. You can tag each other, you can message each other, and share resources, upload files, media. There's all of those options are there. So please do check that out. And yeah, I'll stop now for any questions, any last thoughts as we close. Anything anyone would like to share? If not, then just a huge thank you from our side for being part of this cohort, for learning with us, sharing your experiences with us. It's been such a pleasure, and really look forward to seeing all of you in other spaces, other courses, any other conversations. So thank you so much, and we look forward to staying in touch with everybody. So please do feel free to write to us, email us, social media, anything, whatever works best for you.